This week's Shy Report is the gambling industry versus the people. Just imagine it's the end of school term and you've run out of the class, you've gone home, you've told your parents you got straight A's, only for them to realize when they're reading your school report that actually you barely passed. So you lied to them and you got caught out. Well, exactly the same thing has happened to the government this week. In the frenzy of the last few sitting days before everyone went off on our winter break, back to our electorates to escape the Canberra cold, the government tried to put in legislation on gambling that has failed to deliver and to protect people. And they've lied about it. They haven't been straight about what these laws really do. And honestly, this tells us a lot. It tells us who the government is really listening to and who is pulling the strings. Because when you look at this law, the gambling laws that government's introduced, what's in it and what's been left out, you can see plainly that the gambling industry has their hooks all over this. It delivers in their interests, not in the interests of the people. It's a bill and a law that is meant to look like it's doing something while allowing the industry to continue to grow and make profits where the business is the strongest. Let's just have a look at the figures for a second, because Australians lose more money to gambling than anywhere else in the world. In fact, this week there was a new report out that said Australians lost $104 billion over the last 3 years to gambling. $104 billion. That's hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And this isn't just abstract money. This is real money. This is money out of people's bank accounts. This is money that was meant to pay for rent, that was meant to go on for school lunches, which was meant to be saved for family holidays. This is money that was meant to put food on the table. And this billions of dollars lost from Australians straight into the hands of the gambling industry, an industry that profits off misery and loss. That's the business model. People bet, they lose, gambling companies get rich. Now, before anyone jumps down my throat and says, well, it's a free country, people should be able to bet, fine. Yep, I'm not suggesting otherwise. I mean, if you want to go and piss your money up against a wall, that's up to you. But what I am worried about is the insidious tactics that this industry uses to target people, to get them to gamble in the first place and to keep them gambling. And people smoke, that's fine. But we don't allow tobacco companies to target children and young people to get them addicted to the product and to keep them addicted. This is all about the way this industry operates. And in particular, the relentless, targeted, and frankly sinister tactics they use that draw people in, lure them, and keep them there. And that's what brings us to this big fat F for fail on the government's policy and the lie that is at the heart of the entire policy: online gambling advertising. The policy does not ban online ads. Now, the minister's made a big point of saying that they're doing things to tighten restrictions on television. So when you're sitting down watching free-to-air TV, there'll be some tighter rules. That's true. But that's not where the real problems lie. That's not where the industry is growing fastest and strongest. And it's not where they're targeting their next customers. That's not where they're targeting their next lot of gambling addicts. Online is where the industry makes its money. It's where the ads are targeted with precision, where algorithms push betting promotions to people who are most at risk, where young Australians are exposed every single day through social media, through streaming platforms, on their phones, on their TVs, on their tablets. From TikTok to YouTube to KO Sports to Stan. Online, the gambling industry knows more about you than your friends and family do. They know what brands you buy. They know what friends you have, what friends you'd like to have. They know what shows you watch. They know what shows you watch. They know what your favorite sport is. They know who your favorite player is. They know what times you like to watch TV. They know what times you like to be online. They know when to get you when you're at your most vulnerable. Online advertising is more sophisticated and personally targeted than advertising has ever been before. Imagine if we allowed tobacco companies to know all of our habits and our desires just to sell their deadly product to us, and it straight into our phones, straight onto our television screens, straight into our social media feeds. Well, that's exactly what the government is allowing gambling companies to do. The minister said in introducing this legislation into the parliament last week that it would also ban online ads. Well, it's absolute rubbish. If you have an account online, you can be bombarded with gambling ads. The ads are not banned at all. And it gets worse than that, because the government has put in place special rules for streaming platforms. That's KO Sports, Stan, 7+, all of those ones. They have special rules that allow them to play ads while live sport's playing. So you can't have that on free-to-air television, but if you're watching on your smart TV, you can be bombarded. So if you're at the family barbecue and the kids are using dad's phone to watch the footy, there'll be ads. If you're sitting down on the couch watching the footy on KO, on the family TV, you'll be bombarded with ads. So we've ended up with a law where the government is pointing to restrictions on TV, pretending they've acted, while leaving the most powerful part of the system wide open. The gambling industry is laughing about this. The gambling industry knows that where they're growing the fastest, where they make the most revenue is all online. And the Albanese government has failed. Big fat F. Core of the business model hasn't even been touched. And so in the flurry of the last sitting week, while the government was hoping no one would notice that they had a big fat F on their gambling report, down in the Senate, something else happened that I was really shocked by. And no one's reported this. No journalist has picked this up. I was down in the Senate debating a tax bill for tax credits for companies who want to access research and development assistance, R&D. And while I was sitting there, a number of Pauline Hanson One Nation senators walked into the chamber. They were there to move an amendment to allow the gambling and tobacco industries to access tax credits for research and development. I mean, what the? This is the gambling industry who just made $104 billion off the back of people's addiction and suffering and pain. And One Nation is spending their time in the parliament trying to give them a tax ride, trying to give them a tax credit, trying to spend public money on helping the gambling industry. So while the community is crying out for more to be done to deal with the harms of gambling in our community, One Nation is spending their time in the parliament trying to spend your money, taxpayers' money, on helping the gambling industry. I mean, it just blows your mind. Luckily, the amendment failed. But let's be clear, this is Pauline Hanson's policy. And it just shows what a danger One Nation are if they were to have more power. Rather than looking after the people, they're doing the bidding of the gambling industry. They want to spend taxpayers' money helping them, not the community. And I know this sounds all very depressing, but let me give you some hope. Because while the Labor government have clearly cowered and have caved to the gambling lobby with these new rules they've put in place that they want to see passed quickly, and One Nation's doing the bidding of the gambling industry, there are actually good people on all sides of politics who know that this is wrong and who are starting to work together to get these laws fixed. And the government tried to rush through this legislation and not have it scrutinised. But in the Senate, we worked together. I moved to send the gambling bill off to an inquiry so we could spend the winter break scrutinising it, so that we could give the Australian people in the community the opportunity to see what was really going on, so we could expose the gaps and fix them. And there are good people on the Labor side, on the coalition side, on the crossbench, who now we all have the opportunity to work together to fix the bill. And an inquiry isn't the end of the story, but it is an opportunity to try and wrestle back the power from the gambling industry, from the vested interests, and make sure it's the people who the laws actually help. Because at the end of the day, the choice is really simple. Do we keep allowing an industry that profits off loss and harm to write the rules for themselves, or do we actually stand up for the community? Last week, the government failed to stand up to the vested interests, to the greedy gambling lobby. But there's still a chance to get it right. And if we're serious, we have to focus where the harm is growing fastest, and that's online. That's where the ads are, that's where the money is, and that's exactly what we need to fix if we're to put the people ahead of the gambling industry.